I Was Just Overthinking. Every month, join me for a journey through candid conversations where we explore the depths of overthinking, share fresh perspectives, and sprinkle in a dose of inspiration. Get ready to dive into the world of introspection and self-discovery with us. Enjoy the episode. Hello there, welcome back to I Was Just Overthinking. I'm super psyched to bring yet another episode of season 2. Today we're going to be talking about something very personal to me. I've touched on this subject in season 1, the episode about things that I do that ground me. And one of those things that I mentioned in the episode is journaling. Journaling has been one of the most transformational experiences in my life, especially relating to healing my overthinking. I think it's a great episode to just take a step back and have a bit of a eagle's eye view on the whole podcast and why I even started. I was just overthinking. The whole point of me starting this podcast was I saw a problem in me. I saw a huge issue with my mental health when it comes to overthinking. I am a person who is slightly obsessed with self-improvement and development and growth. I don't think there is necessarily a problem with that. However, anything done in extreme is definitely not a good idea. But I have to say, the whole point of starting this podcast was not only share with people how the overthinking mind works, but also put myself under scrutiny in my own way. Look at myself, reflect on myself, and see if just talking about it on a platform that anybody can access in the world can help me get over overthinking. I must say, it's an incredibly positive journey because ever since I started the podcast 2 years ago, my overthinking has definitely been getting a lot better. One of those things that have genuinely helped me was journaling. I do want to go through what I exactly do and what I call journaling in my own world and how it helps me. I do want to share a little moment from one of the days I was journaling. Usually I journal in the evenings right before sleeping. Every time I open my notebook where I just journal my thoughts and my overthinking, I usually immediately go into what I'm overthinking that day or what I want to just let go of. Very recently, my first sentence when I was journaling on that day was, I took a second because I felt like I was not overthinking anything. And I wrote, I'm not overthinking. I'm just living life. Maybe to a person who's not an overthinker, this doesn't mean a lot. To me, it was one of those turning points when I realized that not only am I not dependent on anything for my mental health and healing my overthinking, but I'm also quite humorous when it comes to talking about it. Sounds a little bit probably alien to certain people, but when you approach yourself and certain things in life with humor and, not taking it too seriously, it makes a really big difference in your life. I've seen too many people who are overthinkers and they take themselves way too seriously. That's a big issue because that stems from insecurity. If you take yourself too seriously, you're not able to laugh at yourself, and even laughing at your own problems, it is a sign of insecurity. It doesn't come from a place of, I demand respect because I'm worthy. It comes from a place of I don't think I'm worthy and I demand respect anyway. But the power of journaling on overthinking is massive. It's made the biggest difference in my life. And there is obviously science behind why journaling helps with overthinking. And we'll go through that in a second. But I really wanted to touch on what exactly I do and how it helps me and how it makes me feel. So let's start with scientific explanation of why journaling genuinely can help with overthinking. Right, so here are some of the scientifically backed reasons why journaling helps with overthinking. The first one is externalizing thoughts. There is such a thing that is called cognitive load reduction. Writing down thoughts frees up mental space, reducing the cognitive load on your working memory. This helps prevent the mind from becoming overwhelmed by a cycle of repetitive thoughts. There is also another aspect to externalizing thoughts, which is brain processing. When thoughts are externalized, the brain perceives them as less urgent or chaotic, enabling clearer thinking. Another aspect of why journaling helps overthinking on a scientific basis, on cognitive basis, is emotion regulation. What do I mean exactly with emotion regulation? It's related to our prefrontal cortex activation. Journaling engages the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for logical thinking and decision making. This reduces activity in the brain's emotional center, helping to regulate anxiety and stress. At the same time, it's also related to emotional labeling. Writing about emotions helps to identify and label them. Studies show that naming emotions can reduce their intensity and provide clarity. Another aspect of why journaling is great for overthinking is cognitive restructuring. There is a concept called reframing negative thoughts. Journaling allows for cognitive restructuring, a process where you challenge and change distorted thinking patterns. This is a core technique in cognitive behavioral therapy. I think if you're listening to an overthinking podcast, you've probably either been recommended to go into CBT and try it, or you've definitely looked into it or researched it. If you've not heard about this, most of the therapists or GPs recommend cognitive behavioral therapy for people who have anxiety and who suffer from overthinking or depression. How it works is that our brain can be programmed into thinking certain things. All of it revolves around self-actualization and, almost like a mindset manifestation. And all of that might sound like voodoo to some of you, but in reality, it has roots in genuine, brain processing, how your brain works. If you think self-actualization or manifesting is stupid, it's not. It's genuinely scientific. If you can reprogram your brain into thinking positively, then you will start seeing everything around you positively, and it will lead to better results, and you will achieve more things. Similarly to this, there is also perspective shifting. So writing encourages a shift from an internal, emotional perspective to a more objective, analytical one, helping to resolve overthinking cycles. This one is a little bit more interesting because I've never been to a therapist, by the way, but I know a lot about therapy and therapists. So a lot of therapists will tell you that if you are trying to explain your emotions to yourself, and that's your usual way of talking to yourself when you're in distress, that could be a way of you actually avoiding facing those emotions. Again, I'm not a therapist, right? It sounds about right. However, let's not mix that with overthinking. That's a big distinction I make in my brain. Overthinking is not emotion, okay? It's your brain just spitting out worst scenarios, going through cycles of repetitive thoughts. Okay, overthinking is not emotion. So when you actually write it, you're not avoiding it. You're actually facing it. And that's why it helps you so much. Another part of why there is genuine scientific reason why journaling helps overthinking is, I guess, being present and being mindful. Journaling brings attention to the present moment. This interrupts rumination by grounding you in the act of writing and reflecting. Again, it's as simple as it's a known fact that when we do things with our hands, it makes us happy. It gives us dopamine. It's the same with, if you like to crochet, you like to paint, you like to do some DIY projects, right? There's a reason why we like to do them. It's because it brings us genuine happiness, and it comes from our evolutionary development as human beings. Doing something with our hands gives us that genetic satisfaction, and it makes sense. Reviewing journal entries over time can also help you recognize repetitive thought patterns and triggers, making them easier to address. This is definitely something I've noticed. If you know me at least slightly, you will know that I am the queen of seeing patterns. I'm incredibly incredibly observant person, and I see patterns like nobody else. I remember when I used to do those, some of the jobs require you to take some tests. And I remember when I was applying after I graduated, there were loads of logical tests, whatever they called them, right? But mainly they were about seeing patterns. I would always score literally 10 out of 10, 100%, just because it's so easy for me to see patterns. But maybe it's not really obvious to a normal brain. As I was journaling every night, I think it's not that, for me, again, maybe for a person who's not extremely self-aware, that can be a point, For me, it was more of I already know I mentioned this before, so I kind of dealt with it in that chapter of my journaling, and I let go of that. Kind of similar, but similar in different ways. But yeah, there's definitely some points to go to pattern recognition. Cortisol reduction. Now, my favorite topic is, stress hormones and hormones in general. Research has shown that expressive writing can lower cortisol levels, the stress hormone, leading to a calmer mental state. And journaling offers a safe outlet for emotions, preventing them from being bottled up or leading to further rumination. Again, this one is kind of a personal thing. Again, in my eyes, overthinking is not emotional, it's just irrational. It's just your brain going chaotic and crazy. Nothing to do with emotion. Hence, I like to write about it. Emotions are just a lot more complicated to deal with, but maybe that's a topic for yet another episode. And lastly, problem solving, right? Writing organizes thoughts in a structured way, which can help identify solutions to problems that seem insurmountable when overthinking. Journaling can serve as a brainstorming tool to explore multiple perspectives and potential resolutions. It's true. I think a lot of good ideas can come out of journaling. I mean, from my experience, a lot of the times when I was journaling, I would either figure out, we see those reels on Instagram, when things start to make sense and the dots are all connecting and you're having this moment of, oh my God, this makes sense why this has been this way. It does happen to me more often than you'd think. It does happen sometimes. You just, you're too busy. I mean, we live very hectic lives and there is almost no time to sit back and think about certain things, think about yourself. Not a lot of people even have that space to think in. So self-reflect and find space or hold space. Holding space for restructuring certain issues in your head and coming up with solutions. Now to a more personable approach. I'd like to tell you how I journal. Maybe it could be an inspiration for you to take it up as well. Or maybe you're, doubting whether you're journaling or not. In any case, this is what I do. Every night after me winding down, whatever I'm doing, like skincare routine, be it shower, whatever, right? I've prepared myself to sleep. A couple of things I actually never do is I never scroll in bed before sleep. I never read any messages, very rarely, unless it's something urgent. I never read any notifications when I'm in bed right before sleeping, because I know that it activates my brain and I just don't want to have that space when I'm sleeping. To me, sleep is sacred. It's genuinely the only time in the day when I obviously relax. And I've been working really hard lately to make sure that I get a really good quality sleep. And those things really help me. One of the biggest contributions into a good night's sleep is journaling, because if you're overthinking, obviously you're not going to be able to fall asleep easily. I've got my journaling notebook right by my nightstand. Again, convenience. We talked about this in season 1, right? How do we continue, or how do we consistently stick to new habits, right? It's all about convenience. If it's convenient for you to pick up that notebook every night and write in it, because the notebook is right next to your bed and the pen is right on top of it, you will most likely take it up, and which has been the case for me. So first of all, the convenience of the habit, it's amazing. You need to set yourself up, not for failure. You need to set yourself up for success, right? Whether it be small things like taking up a new hobby or a new habit that you think is necessary for your lifestyle, do it. Convenience is important. Every night I pick it up, and there isn't a certain way that I speak, or write rather, but usually I just start writing. And trust me, it's not random what you start writing. When you start writing, the flow is so natural because there is so much overload in a person's brain when they're overthinkers that literally the words come out themselves. One funny thing I've noticed, usually, and actually it's yet another pattern I've noticed in my notebook, and I would actually recommend you do it as well if you are already a journaler. Look back throughout your notes and go back all the way to the very first one and start kind of going through it and see if you can see a pattern. For me, I saw that my handwriting was incredibly bad at the start when I started that notebook. It was just very chaotic. I could tell that I was writing really fast because there was so much, going on in my brain that I was, my hand wasn't fast enough to catch up with the amount of chaos, right? So my handwriting was horrible. If I go back and actually try to read it, I can't. But then I saw that throughout time, my handwriting started to get incredibly clear. And if that's not a sign that journaling helps you clear your thought patterns, stop overthinking, and deal with it properly, I don't know what else you can use as a sign that this journaling is something that helps you. It's an incredible thing, honestly. And when I started seeing that pattern of my handwriting going loads better, I was like, wow, this is kind of amazing. Don't get me wrong, obviously there are some days recently, right, that sometimes my handwriting is a little bit crazy because, again, I might be having one of those days when my overthinking is a little bit more triggered. But I must say, it's still never as bad as it used to be at the very start. So it's baby steps, but it definitely works. And I think the whole kind of full circle moment that came about and that led me to do this episode was that very entry in my notebook saying that, well, I'm not overthinking, I'm just living life. That is just honestly one of the most amazing things to write down in your notebook. I do want to highlight another thing, and this is one thing I always struggle to explain to people. I'll try my best, but I don't think it's healthy for you to rely on anything for your mental health, right? Some of us rely on a person. We can put our mental health issues on the other person and expect them to solve it for us. Sometimes we resort to meditation, to therapy, to this, to that. I'm not saying that maybe some of those things are a lot more healthier ways of dealing with overthinking or with mental health issues. From my experience, I've realized that you need to be your own doctor, you need to be your own therapist, you need to be able to handle things by yourself because you're powerful enough without having to depend on something else. Not so much with journaling, but I've noticed that dependency when I was in uni and I was struggling a lot with anxiety more than overthinking. I used to have that app, and I can't even for the life of me remember the name of that app, but I think it was free for students, or it was really cheap for students. So I was like, you know what, let me download it. And I used to meditate religiously every day. I'm not gonna lie, it did help in the moment. I would wake up incredibly anxious and it would help me in the moment to calm myself and relax. But the root cause never, the root anxiety never went away. And I felt like if I couldn't meditate, I felt like almost like a drug addict. I'm like, no, give me my meditation app. I need to do it. Otherwise, I won't feel better. I grew out of that state. I grew out of that state of dependency on something external to fix me. Again, I'm talking about my experience, right? Whatever works for you works for you. If you've managed to improve and develop in certain ways for your mental health and you used one of those tools, be it going to a therapist or using a meditation app or whatever, it's great. Like as long as it actually works for you, it's amazing. The only thing I would say is, like anything in your life, if you depend on something too much and at one point it's taken away from you, what will you do? Tread lightly. I would say whatever helps you, obviously experiment, try it out. If it helps you, it helps you. You know, you can't really put a price tag on something like that. It's great. But obviously tread lightly. Don't ever make that your solution. You go to therapy to understand certain things. And if you need that boost, and if you need that externally, if you need to hear certain things externally, by all means do it, right? But at the end of the day, the work is with you. The work is internal. Your self-discipline, the discipline of thoughts, is the only way out. It's how you can discipline your mind is the key. How you do it is your problem. It's your choice. It's your decision, right? No, don't let nobody tell you any of that. But don't use it as this is I'm going to therapy. That means I'm great. You know, I'm stopping overthinking. I'm stopping anxiety. No, right? You go there, you'll be present, you'll be conscious, you understand what's being told to you. Use it to discipline yourself. If you don't have those tools internally, of course, seek it outside. I can't really sit here and promise that, you know, I'll never have a day where it's just too much. But I know that I am building myself up for that. I'm building my mind, my mental health up to that point where, I won't exactly need it. If I do need it, that's fine. But it's all about the healthy habits, the tools that you use right now, every day consciously to make sure that that issue does not happen again and that you can handle it by yourself without giving too much energy away, without sacrificing your health for that. It's just something you need to learn, and it takes time. That pretty much wraps up today's episode. It was a very personal, a very self-reflective episode, but I hope you either saw something familiar or got inspired from the episode to start journaling. Definitely recommend it for an overthinker. Until next time, take care and bye-bye.